Bernie Ecclestone is former chairman of Formula One. He's a man with a knack of generating headlines. It's fair to say, maybe not always headlines, he's likely to want to cut out and paste in a scrapbook to hand as a present to his soon-to-be born fourth child and his first son. Hello, Bernie. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, Bernie, I'm going to come in a second to some of those headlines you've generated. Whether you wanted to generate them or not is something you can tell me about. But you've got a fourth child and a first son on the way. So many congratulations. Bernie, not too many men can celebrate a new child at the age of 89. So congratulations for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah, I was actually waiting a little bit. I was trying to make this happen when I was 90.
Okay, well, look, you nearly made it. You nearly made it. And so, look, I'm impressed. I'm impressed in all sorts of ways. I don't know if you know this. There was a former wrestler called Ramjit Raghav in India who had a child, or his wife had a child, at the age of 84. Now, he's sadly no longer with us. So maybe, Bernie, the place of honour in the Guinness Book of Records belongs to you. I don't know if you're minded to celebrate that.
Not particularly. I mean, I'm very happy we're going to have a boy, because up to now it's been girls that I've managed to produce.
Yeah.
Nice boy. More important, Fabiana's, happy with the boy. So that's even more important.
Yeah, well, it is important, and congratulations. Lots of dads dream of playing football or cricket with a new son or girl, for that matter. You're looking forward to a game of backgammon.
Yeah, I'll have to wait a little bit, I think.
Maybe a bit, yeah. And what about the nappies? Are you going to do the nappies, Bernie? Or is that a silly question to someone who's fortunate enough to be a billionaire?
Well, I don't mind doing things like that. It's not I think if I started to do that, I'd be in trouble saying it's not my sort of job. I shouldn't do it.
Yeah, okay. There'll be people who disagree with you about that, but then again, you've got the more options than quite a lot of us. And look, I don't want to pry into your family life, Bernie, if you don't want to go there, but your daughters, famous daughters, Tamara, Petra, they were very publicly unhappy with your third marriage, weren't they, to a woman half your age? Has that been patched up?
Yeah, they're super friends. Yeah. In fact, we're having dinner with one of them tonight.
Okay, well,
Petra's gone back to America. She left today, and Tamara's here with us.
Okay, well, that's I guess a cheerful note on the family front. I'm going to move on to what I was talking about a little earlier on. I should just say the line is a little bit shaky, and we're going to try and persist with this. But if we lose Bernie, we'll do our best to get back as soon as we can. Meanwhile, I'll try and persist. Bernie, the stories you may be less happy about than your grandson's birth, you were very publicly condemned, weren't you, by Lewis Hamilton, the champion Formula One driver, after you said a lot of black people are more racist than white people. Now, look, quite obviously, that may be the literal truth in a number of cases, but he didn't take it literally, and nor did a lot of other people. They took you to be saying that the issue of racism was being overblown in some way. So can you understand why Lewis Hamilton would be upset with you about that?
I can understand it being overblown. It wasn't me that was making it overblown.
Yeah, but the feeling was that
Lewis, I mean, you'd expect to say something. He is black. That's it. So he has to defend that, I suppose. Yeah. But I think that the people will understand what I've been talking about.
Well, I mean, a lot of people would say, but we're going to try and persist with this line, just see how we get on. We're hearing the essence of what you're saying, Bernie, which is I guess good enough until we are forced to try something different. But we're talking about Lewis Hamilton. He is an intelligent man. Why would he say there's a serious problem of ethnic minorities being underrepresented in your sport, your old sport? You're no longer the chairman, and then set up a commission to examine the issue if he didn't have some kind of point in saying that?
Well, he's saying it because it's a fact.
You accept this then, but you do not accept the issue's being exaggerated.
No, I mean, you'd have to be complete half-wit, having a look at the people involved in Formula One and see how many black people are involved.
Sure. Well, that's a clear point. But I guess Lewis's point was you were the chair of Formula One for many years, and in that time you might have done something about that. You might have taken some steps to get a more diverse level of people into Formula One, and it hasn't happened. So, from that point of view, what do you say?
I say that I was the first person, the black guy in a Formula One car, probably 30 years ago. A guy called Willie T. Ribbs.
Yeah, and yeah, sure. And there's Lewis Hamilton, of course. That's a shining
Yeah.
example. But they're not exactly commonplace. They're a very long way from being commonplace. That's why he set up this commission, and why Formula One itself has said it's got to do a lot more to get a lot more communities represented in Formula One.
Well, we need to have to wait and see. I mean, there's been plenty of opportunities. If today a very talented, quick black driver turned up at Ferrari, although they've just signed a guy up now,
Yeah.
I guarantee if they thought the guy was as talented as Lewis, they would be happy to take him.
Yeah.
The trouble is, they haven't had, not forget the fact of black people, lots and lots and lots of white English guys and Chinese or whatever haven't had the opportunity. That when they've come into Formula One, they've had to bring sponsorship with them. If people had found a black guy that's talented and wanted to sponsor him, they could have done.
Does that mean you think then, Bernie, just to be clear, does that mean you think there's nothing more that you could or should have done, nothing you'd do again differently if you had the chance? You think you're very happy with the way this has been handled in the years leading till now, and your own handling of the issue as a very influential figure, the chair of Formula One? You've got no regrets?
The only regrets I've got is when I owned Brabham, the Formula One team, which I did for 18 years. And like most people are today, we were always looking for sponsors. So I was more than happy if I could have found a black guy that was capable of being able to deliver. And that's the reason I gave Willie T a test for that reason.
Yeah, okay, and you wouldn't have done anything differently. I mean, you can well imagine, I'm not sure this is going to satisfy the likes of Lewis Hamilton, or have you had a conversation about this since your famous bust-up? Have you managed to rebuild those bridges, Bernie?
We haven't had a bust-up. Lewis and I haven't spoken since all this started.
Well, he's spoken to others, though. He's spoken to others, and he's described you as ignorant, in the things that you said. That sounds like a bust-up to me.
Well, he probably is in a position to decide whether I'm ignorant or not, because I've had the same sort of education as him. So I think we've got one thing in common, if nothing else. It's a funny thing. I had a message from his father today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slightly.
So
I think we may have lost the line for a second, Bernie. What was your message from his father, from Lewis's dad?
No, we were talking about a business thing that we talked about a month or two ago, that he wants me to invest with him in, which I'm happy to do. He's now improved a lot of things which were wrong at the beginning.
Yeah.
And hopefully we've got it right now.
This is exercise equipment, isn't that right? Something of that sort?
It's a rowing machine.
A rowing machine, yeah. Can we talk about the sport? And and on another front, there's been all sorts of talk and quite a lot of controversy, Bernie, you know very well. Let me just put it this way, because you've heard this question before. I'm just interested in your answer now. Are you quite relaxed, as an ex-chairman, but one with a stake in the business, an emotional stake, if nothing else, about the relationship between sport and Formula One in particular, with a country like Bahrain as a venue for Formula One racing, given that country's human rights record?
Well, I went through a lot with all the human rights, and I met the people that were complaining about things. I met the person that was really in charge of that.
Yeah.
And the people were saying they were being beaten and all this. I said, well, can I go to the prison or whatever, and let's speak to these people? That couldn't happen. Well, let's get them out and talk to the people, and let's really see what their complaint is. And in the end, the bottom line was a very simple one, which they couldn't answer, which is what I said was, I'm quite sure what you'd like to be able to do is take over the country. I said, and normally what happens with these things, when this happens, it's happened millions of times. People have wars.
Yeah, okay. Look, but I mean, in that answer, are you recognising that there is an issue of human rights in a country like Bahrain? I could choose many other examples, but let's talk about Bahrain. There's a Formula One race there every year. There's another one. Well, when racing reopens, there'll be another one there again. You don't sound as if this weighs heavily on your mind. You want evidence, and evidence there is surely aplenty.
I haven't seen any.
But you must have read about this, Bernie. You know that there's plenty of testimony about human rights abuses in Bahrain.
Can you give me an example?
Well, I could give you an enormous, great file of evidence if you
Yeah,
wanted it. Are you saying you want such a file about
it's
the
okay.
imprisonment of political opponents and critics of the government, the torturing of
It's
detainees, the way that women are treated in Bahrain compared to more enlightened
evidence.
Western countries? I mean, you don't need evidence of this, do you, Bernie?
Now, I've asked, have you got?
I've seen lots of such evidence. It hasn't occurred to me to dispute this is the truth.
No, what you've seen is what people have said.
Okay, so you're skeptical there is a problem. Just to be clear, you don't believe there's a problem at
I
all.
am because I spoke to the people that were involved,
Which people do you mean?
the people that were complaining.
And you didn't believe them?
They didn't say anything. In fact, I think, in fairness, they didn't believe what they was telling me.
You've forgive me. You've kind of lost me. They told you a story of abuses in Bahrain, which have been very widely reported on
I
TV,
don't,
on radio, and in print. And you say they didn't believe it.
I don't believe that they believed in what they were saying.
Yeah. So why would they say these things to you, let alone to the world's media, let alone to Amnesty International, let alone to I don't know how many people who protest around the world about the situation in Bahrain? Why would they say that if they didn't believe it? Why would they say that if there wasn't evidence that it was true? I'm only pursuing this now in this way, Barney, because you're arguing
No,
there's no problem.
it's good. It's good. It's good. I think if you'll find it's all very political. What's happening in America isn't that political at all?
When you say what's happening in America, what do you have in mind?
Well, there's people there, the black people there are complaining, and there's things going wrong. So you don't think that's political? You don't think anybody's hanging on to that?
Okay, I think. Look, I mean, since you asked the question, I think there's a lot going on in America, and we can all see it on our screens and on our radio, hear it on our radios every hour that passes. But and you're surely not disputing there is at least an issue there. It's causing an awful lot of political controversy. That is so obvious that it barely needs to be stated. And you're not disputing that there's a question there, not on the scale of Bahrain when it comes to institutional abuse of political opponents or minorities, but clearly a problem there. And you'll accept that, Bernie, won't you?
No, it's not a case of accepting anything. It's a case of looking at facts.
Okay.
I'm not a judge.
Yeah. Okay. Look, I'm going to move on from this. I think I've got as clear a picture as I could reasonably hope to from your views on that. Let me ask you this, Bernie. We're in June. It was said that you're to lose your title as the emeritus chairman of Formula One. It was due to expire this month. That's right, isn't it?
No.
Then tell me, are you going to lose your title as emeritus chairman of Formula One?
It was an agreement that when I was asked to leave, because Mr. Kerry, when he bought shares of the company, and I knew he'd bought the shares because he bought mine as well, the CPC, had asked to meet me in my office on a Monday and told me how they'd bought the shares a couple of days before, which I knew. And I said, yes, I understand this. And he said, I'd like you to stand down in your position as chief executive because that's the position I want.
Sure. That was the chief executive's job. But the chairman, the emeritus chairman, is a kind of honorary position, isn't it?
If you let me continue, you get
the
answers.
Please do.
But unless you want to answer them because you've got more information than me.
No, I'm listening, Bernie. I'm keen to hear.
Good. So I said, well, you bought the car, you might as well drive it. And then a document was produced showing exactly what they wanted to do and wanted me to sign it and resign, which I did. And amongst those things, they were going to pay me exactly what my contract, which I had with myself since I owned the company, the amount. And they said, and what we'd like to do is to offer you this position. And I said, well, okay. They explained what a wonderful position it was, how it was fantastic. And it was like if the guy like Trump, which he wasn't around at the time, but if the president had stepped down in America, it's what they'd give him. I said, wonderful. I said, well, I've been offered a couple of very, very honourable positions in England. One of them is that I've got a doctor's degree, which I never use. So these labels don't mean an awful lot to me.
Yeah.
I've never done anything with that position. They asked me, or in the agreement was that I would speak to the board and keep them up to speed with everything. They never asked one question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really couldn't do what the honour that they gave me was meant for, because I wasn't asked.
Yeah, Bernie, look, you don't have a role there. Let's put it this way: you're at some distance now from the people who are running Formula One now. But do you still
Yeah.
love the sport? Are you still going to be going to watch Formula One?
Absolutely, I haven't missed one. But I watch all the races on TV,
So where's next?
except
Yeah, where are you off to
except
next?
well, when I'm not allowed to go to the first race, which is Austria, because apparently I've still got a pass to go to a Formula One race, for which I'm very grateful for. But I've been told I couldn't go there because I wasn't doing anything important, which is true. They don't want a load of visitors. Although I've been invited probably about 3 hours ago
Yeah,
by the person who owns the circuit, and that owns an awful lot in Austria.
yeah,
It's very disappointed that I'm not going to be there. And when I told him why I wasn't, he said, well, you can come as my guest,
yes.
and nobody can stop that.
No, I mean you're going to go as a private guest of someone who, in this context, is a friend. But you were told, you're the chair of Formula One. You were simply told by the authorities of the sport, you are not welcome. Do not come near. That's what they've said.
No, it isn't what they've said at all. You see, you're only half up together with what you're saying.
Okay, no,
You should
I'm eager
but
to understand
you,
you. I think
you
you said they told you you don't have a role there. You're not wanted.
can find out what you're talking about before you say something.
No,
The,
do enlighten me, Bernie.
there's a letter being sent to all the people that hold Formula One credentials,
Yeah,
explaining to them that unless they have a particular position to be at the circuit, they shouldn't be there.
I see. Okay, that's well. Your chair is no
Every
longer there. Yeah.
and
Okay.
nothing,
It would have. I guess.
nothing
Yeah.
to do with all the people that were involved in Formula One.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. Look, tell me now. We're about running out of time. And look, thanks for coming and talking to us. I genuinely do
Yeah,
appreciate your time and you're doing that. Just
yeah.
finally, what would you, Bernie? What would you like your legacy to be? How would you like to be remembered as the boss of Formula One for such a long time?
I'm not the slightest bit interested whether I'm remembered or not. And probably, like most people, when you're gone, you're gone. Nobody wants to remember.
That's very unsentimental of you. Surely you'd like to be remembered for doing something for the sport, to taking it to a
No,
better place.
if people want to remember me for anything, it's okay.
Okay, well, that's pretty. That's pretty unemotional of you, Bernie. But look, again, I'm emotional because I'm really grateful for you coming on Times Radio this afternoon. Maybe we can talk again before too very long. That's Bernie Ecclestone, the former chairman of Formula One, here on Drive Time on Times Radio.